Chris Newman, Truth and Consequences. This diagram behind me, this presentation, follows directly on the one I gave about the two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge, good and evil, from Genesis, the first book in the Bible. Let's continue focusing on the tipping point, which is the place or point of your decision or choice, which I mentioned earlier is your superpower. God's only commandment for Adam and Eve, meaning it does mean you and me, but our world is a little different, was to not eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge, good and evil. Unlike a lot of common understanding from people like St. Paul and other Christians, they miss the point. They think Adam needed 10 commandments. No, he only needed one, because there was no fallen world, there was no confusion around him. The only commandment that he had to deal with was God's first commandment. And so this diagram explains what happens from a point of origin, of unity, of one. And it answers the question of how could God let all this bad stuff happen in the world? Oh, how come a good God can let bad things happen? Oh. And all this continued ongoing pondering. Let's get down to the guts of it. I've given an elaborate title. It's called The Inductive Expansion from Simplicity to Complexity through Relationship and Compounding. And those of you who know a little bit about money will understand the power of compound interest, how a small amount of money over a period of time through the compounding of interest can create a fortune. Let's start at the tipping point, because it is possible that decisions, which are a superpower, could also create a reality greater and more powerful than your compound interest of money. Let's explore how this works. I'm using a model which is called, I better write it on the board. It's called Pascal's Triangle. Okay, Pascal's Triangle. Now, this is a well-known principle in mathematics, and I'm going to explain how it works regarding your decision, your superpower. So you start with the universal starting point, which I'm going to call one decision, one thought put into action, inwards and then outwards. So within yourself, within your own being, you think about something, you think, paper or plastic for your shopping bag? I know, I'll get a plastic one. Or someone else might say, I'll get a paper one. From that point, it's a trivial example, you go in two different directions. Choose the tree of the knowledge, good and evil. That's one choice. Choose the tree of life. That's another choice. Okay, so let's just go one way. First of all, we'll take the tree of life, the ideal choice. The point of your decision is you agree with God's commandment, you go that way. So the first decision is, oh, I'm going that way. So that means Adam chooses to go with God. So that creates, those two create point number two. So then Adam and Eve, Adam then talks to Eve. So God, Adam and Eve go together. Now we're getting up to the next stage. You see, the decision is now compounding and the numbers and the possibilities expanding. Then the next stage after that would be God, Adam and Eve and their children. And now you see how that goes. These numbers multiply. 1, 1, 2. 1, 3, 3 and 3 make 6. You see, 4 and 6 makes 10. These numbers compound as they go out from one point. So by the time several generations have passed, you've got a large number of decisions and compound realities appearing from just one point. The blessings multiply in the progression of generations. So through relationship and experience and culture, the heavenly world would build upon itself and build a total reality called the Tree of Life reality. Let's go the other way. Starting from one point of motivation, internal, we can go through the tree of the knowledge, good and evil reality. Lucifer and Eve work together and they make a decision. And she believes his story. Now Lucifer becomes Satan, opposed to God, convinces Eve to convince Adam. Now we're multiplying confusion and trouble, because Adam, who was meant to rule over Eve, and together they meant to rule the archangel, are now in a reverse situation, running in an opposite direction from the heavenly direction, multiplying confusion. Then Lucifer, Satan, involved with Adam and Eve and their family, are multiplying the problem out, and the progression goes, and you can see the complexity of the situation, the problems and so on, multiply themselves and compound. So up here we've got Cain killing Abel. Further up here we've got, it says, at the time of Noah, the earth was filled with confusion, hate and fear. So we see how this works. Pascal's triangle is a very useful model to explain the fate or the progression of the direction of choice. Starting from one tipping point, things can go bad and get worse and multiply upon themselves if it is not corrected and directed in the right way. So from the simplest internal motivation and thought, moving into a decision, multiplying out, we have two types of reality, but all founded on the same thing. How can a good God let bad things happen? Well, if people head in the wrong direction and start messing things up, there's very little he can do about it. We are the only ones who have the superpower to change our direction. So we need to make a different choice and head in another direction, back into the original heavenly order, which is God gives his love and truth to Adam. Adam shares that with Eve. Eve shares that with the children. They all work in the same circuit. They multiply the heavenly blessings out. Through the generations, it all starts to make sense. This is the original heavenly model. This here, I'm going to show you a symbol, an amazing mathematical symbol. This here is meant to be the null set, an empty possibility. Empty. This was meant to be empty. Adam was not meant to make a stupid decision. And if he had, and Eve, if they had made a stupid decision, they were meant to reverse it. And God asked them, invited them, in fact, to reverse their decision. But they got into the blame game and dodging and avoiding. So they multiplied, by blaming, dodging and avoiding, they multiplied the confusion and ended up deeper in Lucifer, Satan's camp. So the null set is a very interesting concept. Null, N-U-L-L, null set. Now the null set is meant to remain an empty place. It's not meant to create existence. So if you withdraw your decisions from this area and put them over here, that empties that out. It becomes like a balloon that deflates down, and head your life in a different direction and start building on a positive heavenly way. This collapses and this one strengthens. The big story here is that this world and no one is living this way. We're all tangled up in this mess of good and evil. Very confusing to understand good and evil. I explain this consistently through my presentations, because good and evil is not about God and Satan. Good and evil is the mixed up confusion. Over here, it's pure, original. It's pure and original. So that means it can't be corrupted. But good and evil is easy to corrupt through deceit. So this is a profound explanation, and when you go deeper into it and discover how this works, you can answer so many questions about human life and existence. Because of this nonsense over here, we've avoided and stepped away from our responsibility to make decisions in agreement with God's sovereignty. We're all tangled up in this mess here. which has progressed to a world that we see all around us. The 6 o'clock news reports on this every night. Nobody's living here, so there are no reports from the heavenly kingdom, unless you have an antenna which can pick up what I'm talking about, in which case there are people that know what this is going on. So it's your invitation to go deeper and discover more. Chris Newman here, Truth and Consequences, because everything has consequences. Thank you.